me say the Mama Podcast.
Mama Podcast.
Hi Mama, you're listening to the Mama Podcast. It's Sumaya here, the co-founder of Mama Emmy app. Mama Emmy is the first app to exclusively connect mothers across the Middle East, connect with like-minded mamas and create lifelong friendships. At Mama, we are all about connecting mamas to empower women. So let's join together and make this mission a reality. Today's episode is for the new mamas and moms to be. This one is all about sleep and how to help support your child in having a good night's sleep. Come on, let's face it, we all need to sleep at night. There are lots of takeaways from this one. Let's go ahead and have a listen.
Hi, Yasmine. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. I'm super excited to talk to you because we're talking about sleep. And I know you'll know this, but just from a mom's perspective, sleep is like the hardest thing to deal with after you have a baby. So I'm super excited because we're going to talk more about like newborn sleep and what to expect. So this is really for the pregnant mama or the mom that's just given birth and sort of really focusing on that early sleep cycle. So tell me a bit more about you. What made you get into sleep consulting?
First of all, thank you so much for having me today. I'm so excited to talk with you about everything about sleep. This is what I'm obsessed about. So I'm a certified child sleep consultant through the Family Sleep Institute in the US, and I work with families to support them through their journey with sleep. Whether you are a new parent, I can help you understand those early weeks, how they work, whether you have an older infant or toddler. I can help you fix any problem. It's never too late to fix any sleep problem. So how I started this or what got me into this, I always had a passion into the topic in general, like the science of sleep, the brain development, human behavior, and they are all connected to each other. When I experienced this firsthand with my sister 2 years ago, she had a baby and I stayed with her to help her with her new journey. And at a certain point, she hired a sleep consultant to figure out her baby's sleep because they weren't sleeping at all. So this inspired me to put what I like to do and my interest into a profession. And from where it started, I did like my research to apply to be a certified sleep consultant. And here I am today helping many families to understand and sleep.
So, I mean, I love that. And it's true. I can relate to your sister 100% because like you go from having like 8 hours sleep, 9 hours sleep to then having a baby and you just don't like your body is just not used to it, right? You have a background in economics. So I guess in a way you like things that are structured, analytical, A equals B kind of scenario. Is that right? Is that what sort of attracted you to the actual science behind the sleep?
Exactly. Yeah, I like to analyze things. I'm a kind of person like who introvert as well and like to analyze everything around. So understanding how the lack of sleep, for example, might affect the brain development, understanding how the lack of sleep affect like maternal depression, how when we don't have sleep in place, this affects like the family dynamics. All the family is not rested and they're not getting the rest they want. So seeing the bigger picture of how when sleep is not in place would like affect the bigger picture of the family and the community is what actually got me interested to start this.
You just mentioned maternal depression and lack of sleep. Is there a correlation there? Have they found scientific evidence to suggest that there is a correlation there?
Yes, there are different research and studies were done that show that the lack of sleep in the early months or even throughout the first year of life when sleep is not in place, it's one of the reasons why there is maternal depression, and sleep is one of the things that is recommended for the mother to recover from the pregnancy and labor and to decrease the risk of having postpartum depression. So yes, it's science proven, and also for the studies that were supporting sleep training as well, it's reflected to the point where how the sleep training, when the mother got her sleep back, it decreased the risk of maternal depression afterwards.
I didn't really know there was a correlation. That's really interesting to hear. I can tell you from my personal experience, I know that if I don't get a good night's sleep or like enough sleep in one night, then I feel anxiety. I feel like more irritable. So that's my own personal experience. So I can definitely relate to why that might be the case. Let's just touch on the fact that sleep consultant and sleep training as a term, right? Because I've spoken to a lot of people that are in this space. And I know sometimes it's communicated as something that's quite sort of harsh and firm. But can we talk about that a little bit and actually explain what a sleep consultant does and what that means for the parents? Does it mean that the baby will be crying for hours on end and we have to leave the baby to cry just to figure out what they're doing and let them just fall asleep by themselves?
All right. So many people think about sleep training, as you mentioned, it's all about crying. And I receive a lot of messages like, what method do you use? Do you use cry it out? Shall I leave my baby just to cry? So there are a lot of misconceptions about this because number one, sleep training is not only about the method. The method is just like one part of the puzzle of a sleep training process. So when we do sleep training, we look into the bigger picture. Like, okay, the crying is part of the process, but it's not in the setup of the cry it out because we want to teach the baby how to sleep independently. But we look into other aspects as well, like what is the schedule like? How is the day going? How much sleep the baby is getting? What is the bedtime? Does the baby have a routine or no? How many naps the baby is taking? So we look into different aspects related to sleep to help the baby fall asleep when we want him to learn how to self-settle or self-soothe. When it comes to the crying part, crying out is not the only method. There are different methods where you as a parent, you can be involved as much as you can. You can be completely inside the room, you can be outside the room, you can do some sort of checks on your baby. So we usually start, when I work with clients, I start from a point where the parents are comfortable so that they are able to stay consistent, because sleep training process is a process that takes 2 weeks for like infants, and it takes like 3 to 4 weeks for toddlers. So it's very important to start from a point where the parent is comfortable to be able to continue the process and be consistent. Why we do sleep training is we want the baby to sleep independently. And why we want the baby to sleep independently? Because when the sleep is broken, like the baby wakes up every 2 hours, it means that the baby is not getting high quality sleep. And when the baby is not sleeping well during the night, it means that they would wake up cranky and fussy and they will not be able to have good naps. So we end up in a cycle like day sleep is not good, night sleep is not good, and eventually the baby is not getting high quality sleep. And we all know that sleep is important for babies for order for them to develop and grow. And as we just talked now, it affects the well-being of the family in general and the maternal health of the mother.
I understand where you're coming from. I just want to put a tiny little caveat in here. Sleep training isn't for everybody, and that's okay. I personally don't like the word sleep training because I feel like it's quite a harsh term, and it sounds like, you're training your child to do something. But we guide our children to learn how to brush their teeth. We guide them to learn how to eat. So we guide them to do a lot of things. And if a parent wants to guide their child to sleep in a different way, then that choice is for the parents to make. And so this isn't a conversation to say you should do it or you shouldn't do it. But I just want to put a caveat in here to say that if this is something that you'd like to do as a parent, then, these are the things that are available to you. And if this isn't something that you agree with, then that's okay too. What I do want to point out, which I think was really important that you mentioned, was actually maternal depression is actually associated with lack of sleep. And so if you don't want to train your child to sleep better, then that's okay. But I think this is a reason to actually get help to support you so that you can have that sleep. So if that means that you have somebody come in during the day to look after your child for 2 hours so that you can have a 2-hour nap so you can get back your sleep as a mom, then I think that's important to just point out here. I know that's a side note, and I know that's not something that you personally do, but I just wanted to add that in there. Let's go back to sleep and what we should expect from a child or a baby that sleeps. In the first few days to first few weeks, what should a mom expect? Let's say we're talking to that pregnant mom that hasn't given birth yet, or that really new mom, so she's just given birth for the last few days and she wasn't expecting sleep to be so disturbed. Can we talk about what is actually expected? What should we expect as moms?
All right. So I think the starting point for the mom to set expectations about sleep is Actually, the first 3 months of life, they are called the fourth trimester. Ideally, the baby should have stayed in the mother womb for those last 3 months, but the baby had to go out because of the size of the brain. So ideally, the baby would have preferred to have everything the same as he had it inside the womb. He would like to be cuddled all the time. He likes noisy places, and etc. So this has to do with how we can make the baby sleep in the first few weeks. So to go back to your question, when the baby is born, their stomach is so tiny, and they can take a lot of intake of nutrition or milk at the beginning. So by default, they're gonna be waking up every 2 to 3 hours in order to eat, because they can't take like full feed. They take just like few amounts of milk, and that is the starting point to understand the flow of sleep. It's gonna be very short stretches. It's gonna be very unpredictable. To help you understand further where is the child in terms of development and sleep, when the baby is born, they don't really understand the difference between day and night. Their body doesn't get it. For them, all the time is the same. As well as they are always on light sleep. Their sleep cycle is not fully developed like us as adults. We go from light to deep sleep. They are only on the light part in their sleep cycle. So all this justifies why the baby is having like unpredictable short stretches. Usually the longest stretch would start to happen around 6 weeks to 8 weeks. This is where the baby starts to be somehow aware. We usually get to know their awareness when they start showing us their first social smile. So when they smile, it's a sign for us that they are becoming more aware and connected to their surroundings. And around that time, usually the longest stretch starts to happen at night. Usually somewhere they would have like their bedtime around 8 p.m. at this time. And they would have like a stretch for 4 to 6 hours. And as they grow older towards the 4 month mark, they start to stretch this longer to be around 8 hours. Again, all those are ranges. Every baby is different. Some babies would be on the lower scale, some baby would be on the higher scale. So just not to take these numbers and compare to what you have in place. So everything when it comes to baby sleep is range and average. And yeah, that's a brief about the first few weeks.
So for me, I never got the 6 hours sleep. Like, I don't think it ever happened in the first year. But for me, I know we didn't know until later on in her life, but my daughter had a cow's milk allergy. And so the thing that was keeping her up overnight was her digestion. So she just couldn't digest the milk. And that's like, it was the pain from the discomfort that was keeping her awake. And we didn't know, it's only when we introduced formula that we learned that this was actually the reason why she was staying awake. So I know you're not here to give medical advice and it's not your expertise, but do you see things like that when you're training clients, and what happens in that kind of scenario? So say I was your client and my daughter just wasn't settling and she just kept waking up every few hours, and we were doing we were following this schedule and rhythm. And what happens if you were noticing that this child just wasn't settling for longer than 2 or 3 hours?
So for newborns, it's by default, newborns are like creatures that are able to sleep. So when there is something alarming like this, and if it's happening in the very early weeks, like in the first months, that might be fine. But if we are like after 6 to 8 weeks and this is still happening, this is like a red flag for me. And I always direct families to their pediatrician to check that there is no underlying medical condition, because I work on the sleep habit and the sleep hygiene. But when I notice any red flag, I usually direct families to the pediatrician. And as you said, they are the ones who do like checks and check like whether they have any allergies or something. But it depends on where is the baby, how old is the baby. And in the very early weeks, it's totally fine to have unpredictable sleep and short stretches. At a certain point, no, the baby is able to have long stretches. First of all, we check on the baby sleep habits, good habits, and hygiene is in place. Like does he have like a good room? Does he have like a good schedule? Is the baby sleeping enough? Are you keeping him awake for like long or short period of time? So once we clear out all the sleep hygiene and sleep habits part and all is good and the problem is not fixed, so here we go back to the pediatrician to check on any medical condition.
That's good to know. I think because my worry as a mom would be that we would continue pushing the child to try and get them to sleep. And actually there's something underlying that's causing the issue, you know? Because as soon as we cut out dairy in my daughter's diet, like her sleep changed drastically. Like I couldn't believe how much discomfort she must have been in to be waking up so frequently.
Yes, a lot of newborns, they are having allergies, they might have some colicness, they have reflux. So all those problems are very common in the early months, and they are usually sorted somewhere between 4 to 6 months. So it's good whenever you, and I totally trust the gut feeling of mothers, whenever you are suspecting something, keep looking for a pediatrician who would be able to help you diagnose the problem.
And it would be good to have the support of somebody who is a bit more experienced in understanding what the general sleep cycles are for children, so that you can actually like talk to you and say, hey, is this normal? And is this something that we should expect? And if it's not, then it gives the mom a bit more of an indicator that actually there should be some medical help that we need here. What should we be doing as a sleep routine that should help or guide the child or baby to sleep better?
So sleep routine is one of the very, very important components in the baby sleep. It's something we start introducing as early as 6 to 8 weeks. It's around the social smile mark, and it stays with the child until like they are in school, basically. And even us as adults, we have some sort of routine before we go to bed. It's how we trigger the brain, like it's time to sleep. So starting 6 to 8 weeks, the child becomes somehow aware of the surroundings, and the child's brain is a brain that is able to pick on patterns early on. So the more you are consistent with the routine, the more they start to understand, like when I do this, it means that sleep is about to happen. At this stage, the routine can be very simple, very short. It doesn't have to be like complicated, long routine. It's just foundation part to happen is to start having a routine that happen before bedtime, and to start having a routine for naps as well. The nap routine is some sort of a mini version of the bedtime routine, but it also helps the child to understand that it's nap time and it's time to sleep. It can be as simple as the bedtime routine. I mean, it can be as simple as having like a shower or baby massage, changing pajamas, putting on the sleep swaddle or sleep bag, depending on the age of the child, and do like the breastfeeding part and read a story, or very simple. And you don't have to complicate things at the beginning. As the baby grows, the routine would evolve when the baby is more aware. So the whole idea at this point is just to set up the foundation that we organize the day, we have a routine that happens before sleep time.
And I guess that's just a trigger for the baby to know that sleep's happening. And then so every time that happens, they get used to the fact that actually after this, I now go to sleep. Is that right?
Yes, correct, exactly. Yes.
And
it's like a cue for their brain. Yeah.
And when you say that it evolves as the baby gets older, is that just like as the baby starts talking, you might introduce more books? Is that what you mean by the fact that it evolves?
Yes, definitely. For toddlers, the routine would be completely different because it's kind of a very good bonding opportunity for the parents, especially if the parents are working. So they get to have like a story time, read more books, to sing something together, depending on the preference of the child and the family. So it becomes actually a bit longer. For a newborn, we're talking a routine would be like 15-20 minutes, so maybe shorter. As the baby grows, it can reach up to 30 minutes. To be more interactive and to allow opportunity for bonding and interacting with the child as well.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. That is something that naturally happens, I think, as they get older, because they can communicate as well. when should parents start reaching out for support? So should they say, well, actually, yeah, I would like my child to have a decent, good like sleep routine, and I would like to get some good sleep. Should they reach out to you from like week 4, or should they wait till like they're having problems with the sleep and then reach out to you?
Okay, so this decision is very personal from a family to another. So just to explain, in from 0 to 4 months, it's more about introducing like the healthy habits. Like as were just talking, it's about introducing the routine. It's about setting up the healthy sleep environment for the baby, and to start um, the trial phase of putting the baby to sleep on their own and see what happens, and wait and change your response to know how the baby is able to sleep independently or no. So it's about more of educational, more of trial and error, um, for you as a mother to get to know your child. Your child is still adapting to the world. So it's a kind of a trial and error phase, I would say. Starting 4 months, we are able to do sleep training if the family is interested to do a sleep training. So this happens after 4 months of age, because what happens during the 4 month sleep regression, actually, that the baby develops a lot of things yani, in their body would develop that would help them to sleep. So yeah, everything that we mentioned at the beginning that the baby don't have when they are born, they would have it by the 4 month mark. So whatever guidance we are giving to the baby, their body is able to respond to this guidance because they are able to sleep for long hours. So it depends. Yani, to answer your question, it's really like case by case. It depends on the personality of the parent as well. I worked, yani, from my experience, I have seen like two categories of parents, like the parents who would reach the point that they are sleep deprived and then they will seek help. And there are different kind of parents who like to be like fully prepared and to go to the professional in each field. And I will not wait for the problem to happen. I want to know how I can do things. So working with a sleep consultant is like any decision you take in life. It goes back to your personality, your preference, your resources. So it's always good to seek help before you reach the point where you are on the edge of being like very exhausted, very tired, because sleep is like the core of our well-being. If you are trying to eat well, do workouts, or do all the developmental activities for the baby, and sleep is not in place, it will not be really effective or sustainable. So my advice for any parent is help is here. Yeah, we are lucky to have this kind of services, and there are different sleep consultants. Choose a sleep consultant that you are comfortable with, that resonates with what you want to do and the changes that you would like to implement, and we would love to help you.
So where's the best place for moms or dads to find you, and how do they get in contact with you?
So I have my website. It's yasminegaddis.com. And I have my Instagram page, and they are able to reach me directly through those channels. In UAE, I'm listed with Urban Circle as well. You can book appointments through their platform. It's a very interesting and rich platform as well. So you can reach me either way, whether directly on my website or through Urban Circle as well.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for your time today. It was super, super valuable. I know the parents will take away so many points from this. I will link your Instagram handle and your website as well. So if parents want to find you, they'll find it in the show notes below.
All right. Thank you, Sumaya. It was my pleasure speaking with you today as well.